I'm Gwendolyn Miller. I feel like I've been truly blessed all of my life. First, giving obedience to God for being the head of my life. I felt from a very young child, I was adopted by parents that were very dedicated, caring, and loving parents. My mother was a registered nurse. My daddy was a pharmacist, and I lived with them. They took care of me from from 3 years old. Really, I was living with a grandmother. We moved to Tuskegee, Alabama, a native of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But at a very young age, I moved into their home at Tuskegee, Alabama, where I grew up as their child. They did want to adopt me at a very young age, but at that age, I really didn't understand what adoption meant. And I said, oh no, I don't want to leave my mom and my dad and my sisters and brothers. So they said, that's okay, but we got you anyway. And they sent me to college. I was a graduate of Dillard University. I graduated in 1959. After graduating from Dillard University, I married a minister, Reverend W.J. Miller, and we moved to Lake Charles. I lived there for a while, and then later we lived in several different areas. I had 4 children, and then we moved back to Baton Rouge, which was our final home, where I'm now residing in Baton Rouge. I do have 2 living children, a lovely daughter, Deborah Borski, and her family, and a son, Willie Miller. So I've been truly blessed all of my life, and I'm very thankful to God for what He's done for me. In 1959, my first, when I moved back to Baton Rouge, I worked at the Baton Rouge General Hospital, where the units were very segregated at that time. All Black patients were placed on one unit, regardless of their medical conditions, uh, whether they had TB, whether they had cancer, but they were not able to be anywhere but 4 South. If there were no beds available on 4 South at that time, these patients were placed in the hall with screens around them. Only Black nurses worked on 4 South. No white nurse we had only one white nurse would work on 4 South, and I think it was because of the fact that the workload was much heavier there, taking care of all patients. Our babies were not placed in the nursery with the other babies. The babies were placed on 4 South in a very small area. If a baby was delivered, we'd have to go down the steps, bring the babies up the steps, and place them in a very small unit where we took care of the babies, the patients with all conditions, regardless of what your condition was. And one thing I've always given the nurses credit for, that we had no cross infections. Now, on other areas of the hospital, they did have cross infections. And my expression was that at that time, the Lord took His hat off and left it on 4 South, because He certainly protected us, and we did not do it on our own. It was quite an experience. Now, I will give the Baton Rouge General credit. Things have changed now. It's much better. The units are, I think, integrated now. I will give them also credit because as I worked there as a registered nurse, I was given promotion. I was given a promotion to head nurse on a white unit. So they did make some changes, and I think there are many more changes now that have been made than in the 50s. But it was not an easy job. I'm very thankful to God that He's taken care of me. He's taken care of the families. He's taken care of the patients that we took care of. And I will give credit to the nurses on 4 South, the doctors, Black and white. And at that time, I need to say that Black doctors did not have permission to work on 4 South. They could the white doctors had to admit the patients, they had to see them, and once they were discharged from the hospital, they could go back to their Black doctors. So we've come a long ways. My name is Gwendolyn Miller, and this is my testimony.